I'd only been in Blackthorn for 3 days when I felt it for the first time, the pull. Like something ancient had reached out from the woods and wrapped its fingers around my spine. I told myself it was nothing, just the exhaustion of the move, the unfamiliar silence of a town that seemed to exist outside of time. But the truth is, I'd felt it even before I arrived. In my dreams. In my bones. Like my body had been waiting for something it couldn't name. The rental house was old, but not in the charming way. It creaked with memory, with cold, with something I couldn't touch but always sensed. The air was thicker here. The shadows, longer. My fingers trembled every time I turned off the lights. And yet, I felt drawn to it. Drawn to the forest behind the property, to the wind that whispered things I couldn't quite hear. Like it knew me. Like it remembered something I hadn't lived yet. On the fourth night, I walked through town for the first time. The streets were narrow, the buildings hunched together like they were keeping secrets. People stared. They always do. I've never been good at blending in. Too pale. Too quiet. Eyes too sharp, as my mother used to say. I wore my hair loose and black, like a curtain. And I didn't smile. There was nothing to smile about. Not until I saw her. She was standing under the awning of a closed bookshop, smoking. The smoke curled around her like silk, and the moment her eyes met mine, the world narrowed into something slow and strange. Everything else fell away. Her gaze pinned me where I stood. Unmoving. Unbreathing. She tilted her head, just slightly, like she was surprised to see me. Or like she'd been expecting me all along.
"You're new," she said. Her voice was low, smooth.
Like rain on stone. "You've been watching me," I said before I could stop myself. A smile curved her mouth, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I don't need to watch. I can feel you." My heart beat so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. "Who are you?" I asked.
"Celine," she said.
Celine Graves. The name felt familiar. Like a word spoken in a dream you forget when you wake up, but still feel in your chest. She took a step closer and I didn't move. I should have. But something about her, the way she moved, the way the night seemed to bend around her, kept me rooted. "You're not like the others," she said. "You don't look away." "Maybe I should," I whispered. She smiled again. This time, it was sharper. Too late for that. She turned and walked away, and even though I didn't see her look back, I felt her eyes on me the whole time. That night, I dreamed of her for the first time. Not in a metaphorical way. It wasn't soft or symbolic. It was vivid. Sensory.
Real.
I stood in the woods behind my house, barefoot in the dirt, moonlight bathing, everything in silver. Celine stepped out from behind the trees, her hair long and loose, her eyes glowing red in the dark.
She didn't speak.
She just raised one hand, beckoning me forward. I moved to her, helpless. My body obeyed something older than language. She touched my face. My neck. Her fingers were cold. Her breath was colder. "I've waited so long," she said, her mouth grazing my jaw. "For you." I should have run. I should have screamed. But I tilted my head instead. I let her kiss the skin beneath my ear. I let her open me. Her teeth sank into my throat like it was holy. Like she'd done it 1,000 times. I felt no pain. Only heat. Only light. Only the terrifying, beautiful rush of being undone. When I woke up, I was drenched in sweat, heart pounding, mouth dry. And my neck ached. I stumbled to the mirror, half expecting to find nothing. But there they were. 2 perfect marks.
Faint.
Almost invisible.
But there.
My hands shook. My pulse roared. I wasn't scared. Not really. I was hungry. Not for food. Not for answers. For her. The days that followed were heavy with silence, the kind that didn't just fill a room but settled beneath your skin and breathed alongside you. I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, some twisted product of stress and isolation, a fantasy wrapped in blood and desire. But then I saw the marks again.
Faint.
Fading. But still there. I wore scarves, avoided mirrors, avoided sleep, but none of it worked. Every time I closed my eyes, she was there, Celine, waiting in the woods. dressed in shadow. Her voice like smoke curling into my mouth, her hands cold and possessive as they slid over my body like they already knew every inch of it. I started locking the doors at night, not to keep her out, but to delay the moment I'd give in. I stopped walking through town. People noticed. The barista with the chipped tooth. The old woman with the glassy stare. They looked at me like they could see something blooming under my skin. Something dark. Something not quite human. And maybe they could. Because I started hearing her voice when I was awake. Not in words exactly, but in sensations. In the thrum at the base of my spine when the wind picked up. In the ache behind my teeth. In the way my mouth watered when I saw a drop of red wine on the counter and imagined it was blood. I began to crave her. Not just physically, but spiritually. Like she was a riddle I was meant to solve with my body. On the 7th night, I walked into the woods. Not sleepwalking. Not dreaming. Fully awake. Fully aware. My feet were bare. The moon was high. The trees whispered warnings I didn't listen to. I found her standing exactly where she'd been in the dream, between two twisted oaks, her eyes glowing in the dark like twin stars drowned in blood. "You came," she said, stepping forward. "I always do," I replied. I didn't ask how she knew I'd be there. I didn't ask how she looked the same as she had in my sleep. I didn't ask anything because I didn't care. I only wanted her. She cupped my face, fingers cool and tender, and I leaned into the touch like it was oxygen. "You dream of me," she whispered. "Every night." "Yes," I breathed. "Why?" She smiled, slow and devastating. "Because I left a part of myself inside you." My breath hitched. "What does that mean?" "It means you're changing," she said, pressing her lips to my forehead. "And you haven't even realized it yet." I shivered. Her scent was intoxicating, something between soil and wine, and something older, darker, like the echo of a cathedral abandoned for centuries. She touched my neck, traced the fading marks with the tip of her tongue, and I whimpered. "I should be afraid," I whispered. "But you're not," she replied. "Because fear is a luxury you've already given up. You belong to me now." The words should have sounded wrong. Possessive. Terrifying. But they didn't. They felt like a vow. A promise I had already made long before this life. "What are you?" I asked. "Not just a vampire." Her lips curved. "No. I'm the thing that came before vampires had names. I'm hunger and history. I'm the first breath after death and the last sigh before surrender." "Why me?" I asked. She looked at me then, eyes soft and wild all at once. "Because I've known your soul for centuries. And now you're here. In this form. In this body. And I will have you in every way time allows." Her mouth claimed mine before I could respond, and I melted into her like I was made to do it. Her kiss was fever and frost. Her hands were everywhere, pulling me closer, pressing into me like she could mold me into something new. And maybe she could. Maybe she already had. When she pulled back, my lips were bruised, my breath shallow. "I marked you," she said. "But not just your skin. Your dreams. Your blood. Your will." I felt dizzy. "Am I becoming like you?" "Not yet," she said. "But soon." "What if I don't want to change?" "Then run," she said simply. "But you won't." She was right. I didn't run. I reached for her again, desperate, aching, and she took me apart with her mouth in her hands, slow and reverent, like I was a prayer she'd waited lifetimes to finish. I woke in my bed, fully clothed, my body sore in places that didn't make sense, my sheets tangled and damp with sweat. My mouth was stained with the taste of her. My thighs ached. My neck throbbed. And on my wrist, where I'd never had one before, a new mark bloomed, a sigil, dark and elegant, like a brand drawn in ink and blood. I traced it with shaking fingers and whispered her name. Celine. She had touched me in a dream. And I'd woken up wanting. The mark didn't fade. I expected it to, like a dream dissolving under the pressure of daylight. But it remained, etched into the skin of my inner wrist like a secret only she and I understood. I stared at it for hours the morning after, tracing the sharp edges and curves with the tip of my finger, feeling the faint thrum beneath the surface, like it was alive, like something pulsed through it that didn't belong to me. I told myself I wouldn't go back into the woods. I told myself I'd find help, find answers, figure out what Celine had done to me, what I was becoming. But the truth was, I didn't want to stop.
I didn't want to be saved.
I wanted to see her again. I wanted her hands on me again. I wanted the taste of her mouth, the heat of her breath, the way her presence made everything else fade into insignificance. The next few days blurred. I didn't dream anymore. I didn't have to, because I started seeing her when I was awake. It began in reflections. A glimpse of her face behind mine in the bathroom mirror. The flash of her eyes in a shop window. Her silhouette standing at the end of my bed when I blinked too long. I'd turn, and she'd be gone. But the sensation would linger. The scent of her, like smoke and cedar and night itself. The memory of her voice whispering things I shouldn't be able to understand. And then there were the changes. Small at first. My senses sharpened. I could hear things. The shift of branches outside my window, the flutter of moth wings against the glass, the ticking of the old clock in the hallway like it was a drumbeat. I could smell things too.
Blood.
I smelled it everywhere. In the air, on my skin, beneath my tongue. And worse, I liked it. My eyes changed. I saw more. The world was too bright, too vivid. The outlines of people shimmered. Their emotions clung to them like color. I saw grief as gray smoke, lust as gold, anger as crimson flickers around their edges. When I looked in the mirror, my own eyes had a faint ring of red around the iris. I started wearing sunglasses at night. I stopped going out during the day. People noticed. They always do. But this time, they didn't approach. They kept their distance, whispered, crossed the street, as if I'd become something they instinctively feared. And I had. I was changing. I didn't feel pain the same way. I didn't bleed when I cut my finger in the kitchen. I didn't flinch when the hot kettle kissed my skin. My appetite shifted too. I tried to eat normal food, but everything tasted wrong. Too dull. Too far away. Only raw meat offered anything close to satisfaction. And even then, it wasn't enough. Nothing was. Except her. I felt her all the time now. Even when she wasn't there, she was in my veins, in my chest, in the throb between my legs that refused to fade. I thought I was losing my mind until I woke one morning to find her sitting at the edge of my bed. Not a dream, not a vision, real. Her hand on my ankle, her eyes dark and luminous. "You're hungry," she said softly. "I can feel it." "What's happening to me?" I asked. "The bond is solidifying," she said. "The night I tasted you, I didn't just mark you. I chose you. And now you're becoming mine. But I didn't choose this. Didn't you?" Her fingers slid up my leg, slow and deliberate. "Every time you came back to the woods, every time you opened yourself to me, every time you whispered my name in your sleep, you chose. What am I becoming? Something more. Something better. You were born with the spark. I just lit the match." I sat up, chest heaving. "Is there a way to stop it?" She studied me for a long moment.
"Yes."
"But you won't like it."
"Tell me."
"You'd have to sever the bond.
Completely."
It would be like tearing your soul apart. You'd never be the same. And I would vanish from your life. Forever." I swallowed hard. "And if I don't, then we become one. Slowly. Irrevocably. Your body will adapt. Your senses will expand. And when the final change comes, you'll wake up hungry and immortal. And in love with you?" I asked. Her smile was sad. "You already are." I should have screamed. I should have run. But instead, I pulled her down beside me and kissed her like I was starving. Because I was. Her lips tasted like winter. Like fire and frost and forever. Her hands slid under my shirt, her nails raking against my ribs, drawing lines of want that made my spine arch. She whispered something in that same ancient tongue as before, and my body responded before my mind could translate. My fingers tangled in her hair. My mouth opened for her. I let her consume me. Again. And again. And again. When I woke, I was alone. But the mark on my wrist had grown. It pulsed now. Faintly. Like a second heartbeat. And when I looked at it too long, I could hear her voice inside my head, murmuring my name like a prayer.
Celine.
Celine. Celine. The mark on my wrist pulsed all night. I couldn't sleep, not in any way that felt restful. Every time I drifted off, I felt her. Not just in dreams now, but in my bones. In the ache behind my eyes. In the way my breath caught like I was still under her.
Still beneath her body.
Still whispering her name between gasps. The connection was alive, restless. And I didn't know how much of it was mine anymore. That morning, I woke with blood on my sheets.
Not mine.
Not visible. But I could smell it. Metallic and thick and warm. I sat up slowly, scanning my room, my heart a frantic thing. No one was there. And yet, the scent clung to the air like perfume. Like memory. I followed it. Down the hallway, barefoot. Still in the black tank top I wore to sleep. It led me to the front door. There, resting on the doormat, was a book.
Old.
Bound in cracked leather. No title. No note. No sign of who had left it. I picked it up with trembling fingers. It felt warm.
Alive.
I opened it slowly, unsure why I felt like I was doing something forbidden. Inside were handwritten entries. A journal. Names. Symbols. Descriptions of rituals. Of bloodlines. Of markings. Of women. My fingers stopped when I saw the name, Celine Graves. The entry beside it was dated 1874. My heart froze. The description was vivid. Too vivid. The writer spoke of being chosen, of sharing dreams, of aching for Celine in ways that no mortal woman should. It was exactly what I was going through. But the last line made me go cold. She made me hers. And then she left me hollow. I burned what was left of myself to make the hunger stop. I dropped the book. My skin felt wrong. My throat closed. What was this? A warning? A prophecy? Proof that I wasn't the first? I waited for her that night. I paced the house, the woods, the edges of the field, desperate for her to appear. She didn't. Not until the next night. I found her in the garden, standing barefoot in the moonlight, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. "You read the book," she said. It wasn't a question. "Why didn't you tell me there was someone before?" Her jaw tightened. "There were many before. None like you. You said the bond was rare. Special." "It is." "Then why does she say you hollowed her out and left her behind?" She turned away, her shoulders tense. "Because she begged me to. Because the bond became too much for her. Because not everyone can survive loving me." "Am I next?" I asked. "Is that why you're here? To use me, ruin me, and walk away?" She stepped closer, sudden and fierce, her eyes flashing. "Don't you dare reduce this to something I can walk away from. Do you think I would risk this bond again if I didn't believe it could hold? Do you think I don't remember every woman I've marked? Every soul I've lost?" I stood my ground. "Then tell me everything. No more half-truths. No more riddles. Who are you, really? And what have you done to me?" Her face softened then, and she exhaled like the weight of centuries lived in her chest. "I was born before the world learned to name monsters. I drank from the mouth of death and survived it. I've seen empires fall and rise again. And through it all, I've been alone. Because no one could hold what I am without breaking. Until you." "Why me?" I asked again. "Why now?" "Because you carry something," she whispered. "Something ancient. Something waiting to wake. I felt it the moment I saw you. You don't belong to this time any more than I do." "What happened to her?" I asked. "The woman from the book." Celine's voice broke. "She begged me to end it. I couldn't. So she ended herself." I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. "And now she's back, isn't she?" Celine's silence was answer enough. "She's the one who left the book. She wants to hurt you. She wants to hurt you," Celine said. "Because she knows I'll bleed for you." My knees buckled and she caught me, arms around my waist, face buried in my hair. "I won't let her near you," she said, "even if it means breaking the bond."
"Don't," I said.
"Don't even say it. You don't understand what's coming," she whispered. "She's not just a memory. She's vengeance made flesh. And she knows how to hurt me. Through you." I held her tighter. "Then we fight her. Together." "I've never had a partner," she said. "Not really. They always became prey. But you bite back." I kissed her, slow and deep and full of everything I was too afraid to say. And when I pulled back, I whispered, "Then let me be the first." That night, we didn't sleep. We lay tangled on my bed, our bodies speaking in a language older than blood, older than names. And outside, beyond the trees, something watched. Something wearing the face of a long-dead lover. Something ancient, angry, and rising. The next night, the dreams returned, but they weren't mine. I felt it immediately. The texture of the world was wrong. The trees were taller, twisted in ways they shouldn't be. The moon hung heavy and low, pulsing like a heart. And in the middle of it all, stood a woman with hair like shadowed fire and eyes that burned with grief and rage so old it had turned into something colder. She wasn't Celine, but she carried her scent, carried her touch, carried a hatred that sang with familiarity. I tried to speak, but my mouth wouldn't move. She tilted her head as if listening to a song only she could hear, then stepped toward me, barefoot over the dead leaves, the ground blackening beneath her feet. "You wear her mark," she said, "but you don't know what it means." Her voice was silk over broken glass, and it made my blood feel sharp in my veins. "I know enough," I tried to say, but the words came out as breath, as thought, not sound. "No," she hissed. "You only know the part she let you taste. The part she dressed in poetry and hunger. But love from Celine Graves is a noose wrapped in velvet. Ask me how I know." Her hand reached toward me, and though I couldn't move, I felt her fingers against my skin like frost. "She fed on me," she whispered. "Promised me eternity. Gave me madness instead. And when I begged her to end me, she left." She leaned in, close enough that I felt her cold breath against my ear. "Now I'll return the favor." I woke screaming, drenched in sweat, the sheets tangled around my body like bindings. My heart thundered. My wrist throbbed. The mark pulsed violently, angry, as if reacting to her. To her. I stumbled out of bed, the floor cold beneath my feet, and ran to the mirror. My reflection flickered. For a split second, it wasn't me staring back, it was her. Smiling. I screamed and shattered the glass. Celine appeared before I could even clean the blood from my palm. She stepped through the door like smoke made flesh, her expression hard, her body tense.
"She's found you," she said.
"In your dreams." "Who is she?" I whispered. "What is she?" Celine crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me, cradling me against her chest like something fragile. Her name was Therese.
Once.
She was the first I ever bonded with. Before I knew the weight of what that meant. "She said you left her." "I did," Celine whispered, "because I couldn't watch her break. And now she wants to break me." Celine nodded. "The bond we share is strong. But it's still forming. If she invades your mind, poisons your memories, she can fracture it. She can unravel what we are before it becomes permanent." "So, what do we do?" I asked. "We make it permanent." I looked up at her, breath catching. "You mean the full transformation?" "Yes." Her voice shook. "But I won't force you. Once it's done, there's no undoing it. You'll be bound to me.
Body, blood, soul.
You'll become something other. Something else." "Will I still be me?" I asked. "You'll be more," she said.
"But yes."
"You'll still be mine." My pulse raced. My body ached for her. But my mind screamed with the warning Therese had planted there. "She said your love is a noose." Celine closed her eyes. "It was.
Once.
When I didn't understand what I was. When I took more than I gave. But I am not the same." "How do I know that?" "Because I haven't touched your mind. she said, stepping back. Because I could have bound you already. But I didn't. I waited. Because I wanted you to choose. My eyes burned. The truth sat heavy between us. And then she added, softer. Because I'm afraid. Of me? I asked. Of losing you. The room grew still. And then I did something I hadn't done before. I kissed her first. Pushed her against the wall, hands in her hair, mouth devouring hers like I needed her breath to survive. She kissed me back, her hunger matching mine, her fingers clawing at my shirt, dragging me closer, closer, until there was nothing left between us but the bond, glowing and alive. We made love like war, like salvation, like defiance. And afterward, lying breathless and spent, I whispered, then make it permanent. Celine stiffened. I'm ready, I said. I'm not afraid of her. I'm afraid of losing you. She sat up slowly, her expression unreadable. Then, tomorrow night, the blood moon rises. And with it, the final rite. And if Therese tries to stop us? Then she'll learn, Celine said, her eyes glowing faintly, that I don't lose what's mine. That night I didn't sleep.
But I dreamed anyway.
Not of Therese. Not of fear. I dreamed of fire. Of moonlight. Of fangs sinking into skin like worship. And through it all, I saw Celine's face, not as a monster, but as a woman on the edge of redemption. And I knew, deep in my changing blood, that I'd die for her. Kill for her. Or become something eternal beside her. The night air trembled with anticipation. I could feel it before I even stepped outside. The pressure in the sky, the silence that wasn't really silent, the strange hum beneath my skin that had been growing louder with every passing hour. The blood moon had risen. Massive. Red as split flesh. It bled across the sky like a warning, a promise, a countdown. Celine waited for me in the clearing behind the house, where the trees formed a natural circle around us. She stood barefoot on the earth, wrapped in a long black cloak, her hair cascading down her back like dark water, her eyes brighter than I'd ever seen them. This place is older than the town, she said when I approached, my breath catching at the sight of her. The ground remembers. The trees remember. The moon remembers. And it will witness what we become tonight. My body was already thrumming, vibrating with hunger and fear and something else, something holy. I wore only a thin slip, my skin bare to the air, the mark on my wrist glowing faintly now, like it was responding to the moon. Celine reached for my hand. Her touch was cool, grounding, electric. Are you sure? She asked. This is your last chance to walk away. I'm not walking anywhere without you, I said. Not tonight. Not ever. She smiled, soft and sorrowful, as if she couldn't quite believe me, even now. Then kneel, she said. I did. The ritual began in silence. Celine knelt beside me, her hands on my shoulders, her mouth at my ear. She whispered words I'd never heard but somehow understood, words that curled in my spine, that opened something locked deep in my chest. My heart beat harder. My breath came shallower. I felt her teeth graze my throat and gasped, but she didn't bite. Not yet. She drew a dagger from beneath her cloak, the blade curved, ancient, etched with symbols I recognized from the journal. She slit her own palm and let the blood drip onto the earth. I give myself to you, she said. Body, blood, and eternity. She raised the blade to me, and I offered my hand without hesitation. The sting was sharp, quick. My blood fell onto hers, mixing in the dirt, hissing as it touched the earth. Then she kissed me.
Deep. Fierce.
And when she bit, finally, it was different this time. Less hunger, more reverence. Her fangs pierced my neck, and everything fell away.
The forest.
The moon. My name. I saw only her. Felt only her. Our hearts beating in sync. Our blood mingling. Our breath merging. The world trembled around us. And then the trees screamed. Not literally, but that's how it felt. The energy shifted, sharp and violent, and Celine tore herself away from me just as a cold wind exploded through the clearing. The moon dimmed, the ground cracked, and from the shadows she emerged. Therese. Her form flickered as if reality had to fight to hold her. Her eyes burned like coal, her smile twisted with bitterness too old to name. So predictable, she said, stepping into the circle. You never learn, Celine. You're not welcome here, Celine said, rising to her feet. You are never welcome anywhere, Therese spat. You take and call it devotion. But I was the first. I gave you everything. And now you would give yourself to her? She is not you, Celine said quietly. No, Therese sneered. She's still whole. In a flash, she moved, faster than thought, crashing into Celine and throwing her across the clearing. Celine landed hard, groaning, blood smearing the leaves. I tried to run to her, but some force, kept me frozen in place. Therese stalked toward me, her form flickering between woman and wraith. You don't know what she is, she hissed. You don't know what you are. Then tell me, I said. Explain it. She's cursed, Therese whispered. She binds herself to mortals to feel alive. But she drains them in the end. She always does. She's not draining me, I said. She's giving me something. Something I've never had. A slow death. A choice, I said. She gave me a choice. You just want to take it away. Therese raised a hand, her fingers curling into claws of blackened energy. Then you've made yours. She lunged, and something inside me shattered. Or awakened. I don't know which. But I screamed, louder than I ever thought possible, and the circle ignited around me in red fire. It exploded outward, throwing Therese back with a howl. Celine was at my side a second later, eyes wide. Your power, she whispered. It's waking up. What the hell is happening to me? I gasped. You're claiming it, she said. The blood. The bond. It's yours now. Therese rose from the ground, snarling. You think she's ready for this? She's just a girl. She's more than you ever were, Celine said, stepping in front of me. She's not a puppet. She's my equal. Therese laughed, wild and broken. Then let's see if she bleeds like one. She vanished into the trees. Not gone. Just waiting. Celine turned to me, her face pale. She'll try again. Stronger. Smarter. She'll find the cracks in you and drive them wide open. Then we seal them, I said. Tonight. Finish the bond. It's not safe. Nothing about this is safe, I said. But I'm not afraid. I'm ready. She searched my eyes, and whatever she saw there was enough. Celine knelt again. So did I. And as the moon watched, and the trees held their breath, and the blood between us turned into flame, we began the rite again. This time with fire in our veins. And vengeance waiting in the dark. The fire didn't fade. Even after the ritual was complete, even after Celine and I collapsed into each other's arms beneath the dying moonlight, I could still feel it, coiled under my skin, humming in my blood, stretching in the space between my thoughts like a thing awakening from centuries of sleep. Celine called it power. I didn't know what to call it yet. It felt like hunger, like heat, like potential sharpened into something dangerous. In the days that followed, the changes became undeniable. My eyes no longer reflected light the way they used to. In the mirror, I looked like something imagined, beautiful, haunted, too still. I stopped breathing when I didn't need to. My pulse slowed until I couldn't find it at all. Food tasted like ash. Water made me gag. And yet, I didn't feel weak. I felt strong. Like gravity had changed just for me. Like I could bend the world if I wanted to. Celine noticed too. She never said it outright, but I saw it in her eyes when she looked at me. Pride, wonder, and something like fear. She kept her distance at first, hovering like a shadow. Always present, always silent. I caught her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. Her gaze lingered on my hands, my mouth, my mark. One night, I turned to her and said, "Do you regret it?" Her expression didn't change. Do you? I don't know what I am anymore. You're still you. Am I? She stepped forward, slow, cautious, like I might shatter. You're more than you were. That doesn't make you less. I touched her face then, brushing my thumb across her cheekbone. Then why do you look at me like I'm a weapon you forgot how to hold? She didn't answer, but her kiss was soft that night. Not hungry, not desperate, reverent, like she was trying to remind me of something human. But it was getting harder to remember what that meant. I started hearing things, whispers and languages I didn't know but understood. I started seeing people's emotions like threads trailing behind them. I knew when someone was lying. I knew when they were close to death. I knew things I wasn't supposed to know. Asked Celine about it, and she told me that the bond was mutating, that my blood had taken in something ancient not even she could fully name. I thought I was making you like me, she said one morning, as I stood barefoot in the garden, feeling the ground breathe under my feet. But I think you're becoming something else entirely. Is that good or bad? I asked. I don't know yet. Therese hadn't returned since the ritual, but I felt her. In the trees. In the wind. In my dreams. She never appeared, but her presence coiled around my spine like smoke, like warning. Celine said she was waiting for something. Gathering power. Or fear. She's afraid of what you're becoming, Celine told me. That's why she hasn't attacked again. Maybe she should be, I said. The power inside me liked that thought. It whispered to me in my sleep, showed me visions of fire, of blood, of devotion etched in pain and bone. I dreamed of kneeling before Celine, my mouth stained red, her fingers buried in my hair. I dreamed of her chained to my bed, trembling not in fear, but in awe. I dreamed of Therese begging for mercy, and me denying it. And the worst part was I liked it. I woke every morning with my thighs slick, my mouth dry, and my hands clenched in the sheets. I told myself it was just the bond, just the transformation, just proximity to Celine's darkness. But I wasn't sure anymore, because I didn't just want Celine. I wanted to possess her, to own her in a way she had once owned others. I started to understand Therese in flashes. Not forgive, not justify, but understand. Celine was impossible to forget. Her love burned like a brand, and if I wasn't careful, I would let it consume me too. Or worse, I would become the fire that consumed her. One evening, I stood in front of Celine and said, "What if I'm not meant to love you? What if I'm meant to destroy you?" She didn't flinch. "Then I'll let you."
Why?
I asked, voice trembling. "Because love isn't safe," she said. "And I didn't bind you to me for safety. I did it because I wanted you to become what you were meant to be, even if it means I burn in the end." I kissed her then, violently. I bit her lip until she bled and licked the red from her mouth. She moaned into me like she wanted to be devoured. And I almost did. We didn't make love that night. We tore into each other. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It was a storm, a sacrifice, a claiming. Her fingers left bruises on my hips. My nails scored her back. We left marks not just on each other's skin, but on something deeper, on the bond itself. When we finished, she looked at me like I was something sacred and terrifying. "You're not mine anymore," she said softly. "You're something new." "No," I whispered. "I'm still yours. But now you're mine too." Her eyes burned, but she nodded. Outside, the wind howled. And somewhere far beyond the trees, Therese screamed. A scream of rage, of jealousy, of warning. She felt it. The shift. The balance breaking. And I knew then she would come, because something in me had awakened. And it wasn't just in love. It was ready for war. It began with a silence, so complete it felt unnatural. Not peaceful. Not still. It was the kind of silence that came before something terrible, something monumental. The kind that sucked the air from your lungs and told your body to run even when your mind didn't know why. I stood on the back porch of the old house, the wind unmoving, the trees frozen mid-sway, and I knew Therese had come. Celine was inside, Her back turned to me as she read from one of the ancient books we'd recovered from beneath the floorboards of the abandoned chapel on the hill, her voice low and steady as she muttered protective words she hadn't spoken in centuries. The sigils she'd carved into the window frames still glowed faintly from the last moon cycle, but even that light now flickered. I could feel the wards collapsing, one by one, as if something was pressing its fingers into the edges of the world and prying open the seams of reality. I stepped forward and felt the pressure hit me like a wave, thick, invisible, heavy. It coiled around my spine and whispered promises in a language older than pain.
Therese.
She was near. I walked into the woods barefoot, wearing nothing but a long dark slip that clung to my body like a second skin. My hair was loose. My mark glowed. I didn't bring weapons. I didn't need them, because I was the weapon now. The trees parted for me, like they knew me, like they feared me. I moved without fear, without breath, without hesitation. The forest led me to the place where it all began, the clearing where Celine first took my blood, where the bond was sealed, where the fire still scorched the earth. She was there, Therese, standing in the center like a queen of ghosts, her eyes wild, her mouth twisted into a smile that was both invitation and threat. "I thought you'd hide behind her," she said. "You thought wrong. You've changed. I've become." She circled me slowly, her steps soundless, her presence pushing against mine like a tide. "You don't know what you are." "I know enough." "Do you know that she didn't choose you by accident?" she said, her voice dipping into poison. "She seeks out the broken ones, the lonely ones, the ones desperate enough to mistake obsession for devotion." "She didn't manipulate me," I said. "She offered me a choice. I made it." "Then you're a fool," Therese spat. "Because she doesn't love you. Not really. She loves the reflection of herself she sees in you. The power, the hunger. But when it turns on her, and it always does, she will abandon you too." "I'm not you," I said. "And Celine isn't the same woman you knew." "Isn't she?" Therese's eyes narrowed. "Then where is she now? Why isn't she here, standing beside you?" "Because she trusts me," I said. "Because she knows I can end this." "You won't," Therese said, and her form shifted, grew taller, darker, her hair rising like smoke, her hands turning to claws, her mouth splitting into something monstrous. "Because you're not strong enough yet." She moved toward me in a blur, faster than light, and for a moment I thought she'd rip through me. But I caught her. I caught her with my bare hands. Her momentum stopped as if she'd hit a wall. My eyes burned, and I could feel it, the power inside me rising, ancient, hungry, awake. "I don't need to be strong enough," I said. "I just need to be willing." I shoved her back with a scream, and the force of it cracked the air. Trees bent. The sky roared. Therese hit the ground hard and rolled to her feet, her face shocked. "What are you?" she whispered. "Not yours to kill," I said. She charged again, and this time we collided like two storms meeting. Claw against claw. Magic against magic. Blood against blood. We fought without words, without thought. It was brutal, beautiful, endless. The forest burned around us. The earth split. The moon bled. And through it all, I felt Celine. Not beside me, but within me. The bond thrummed like a second heart, guiding my hands, fueling my rage, reminding me that I wasn't alone. And then I saw it, the hesitation in Therese's strike. The flicker of fear. The ghost of memory. I used it. I dove inside her mind, not physically, but through the bond she once shared with Celine. I felt it, her heartbreak, her agony. The moment Celine walked away, the centuries she spent hollow and furious and alone. I saw the girl she was before the monster.
And it changed something in me.
Just for a second. I hesitated. And that was all she needed. She knocked me to the ground, her claws pressing into my throat, her eyes blazing with vengeance. "Now," she hissed, "you'll see what she does to the ones who love her." And just as the darkness closed in, Celine arrived. She didn't appear so much as manifest. 1 second Therese was above me, the next she was thrown backwards by a wave of black energy so violent the earth screamed. Celine stood over me, eyes glowing, mouth set in a line of fury. "Enough," she said. Therese staggered to her feet, snarling. "Come to protect your precious little project?" "She is not a project," Celine said. "She is my equal. And you," her voice broke, softer now, "you are the one I failed. You left me," Therese said. "I begged you and you left." "Because I couldn't save you," Celine whispered. "But maybe she can." I stood, my legs shaking, my power raw and thrashing beneath my skin. "What do you mean?" I asked. "The bond," Celine said. "It doesn't just connect us. It amplifies us. You felt her pain, didn't you?" "Yes." "Then give it back. All of it. Let her see what you saw." I reached out, hesitating for only a heartbeat, then placed my hand over Therese's chest. She tried to pull away, but it was too late. I poured everything into her, my memories, my love for Celine, my loneliness, my transformation, the fire, the fear, the choice. Her body arched. She screamed, and then collapsed. Her form flickered back to human, fragile, small. She looked up at Celine with tears in her eyes. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "I know," Celine said, kneeling beside her. "And I never stopped regretting." Therese looked at me then. "You're not like the others." "No," I said. "I'm not." She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, she was fading, literally, her body breaking apart into ash and light. "Thank you," she whispered. And then she was gone. Just like that. The forest fell still. The fire died. The silence returned, but this time it was peace. I turned to Celine, my body trembling. "It's over." "Not yet," she said. This was only the beginning. And when she kissed me, I tasted more than blood. I tasted the future. The air in the woods had changed. It wasn't just the absence of Therese or the aftermath of the ritual we'd performed. It was something deeper, older, like the forest itself was holding its breath. The trees no longer whispered her name, but they didn't return to silence either. They watched me now. They bent toward me as I passed, leaves curling in unnatural patterns, roots shifting subtly beneath my feet, like they were reacting to my presence. I told myself it was nothing, a side effect of the power, of the transformation. But I knew better. It wasn't over. Therese had been awound, but something else had been waiting behind her. Celine knew it too. She didn't say it out loud, but I saw it in the way she moved through the house, always alert, always listening. She began reinforcing the wards with new symbols, ones I didn't recognize, older, messier, like language that had been buried in blood and bone. I asked her what they meant. "It's not just about keeping danger out anymore," she said. "Now it's about keeping you in. You think I'm a threat? I think you're becoming something even I don't understand." The word stung, but she wasn't wrong. The days following the battle with Therese were a blur of sensation. I couldn't stay still. My skin prickled constantly, my teeth ached like they were too big for my mouth, and my reflection no longer held still in the mirror. Sometimes I looked older, sometimes younger, sometimes other. I stopped dreaming. Instead, I remembered. Lives that weren't mine. Names I'd never spoken. Bloodlines I'd never heard of. I saw visions of temples carved into mountains, of rituals done in silence, under moons that didn't exist anymore. I heard the voice of a woman singing in a dead language, and I knew she was calling me. "It's your blood," Celine said one night as we lay in bed, her fingers tracing the edge of the mark on my wrist. "There's something inside you that wasn't awakened until I took from you. Something waiting to be remembered." "You said you were the beginning," I whispered. "That vampires came from you. But what if I'm something older than that?" She didn't answer. She just pulled me closer and kissed my temple like she was afraid to lose me to the thing she helped unlock. That fear became real the next night. It began with a scent, incense and rot, thick and sweet, heavy in my lungs like decay disguised as perfume. Celine smelled it first. She froze in the hallway, eyes going dark. Do you feel that? She asked. No, I said. I hear it. The sound was a hum, low and constant, vibrating through the walls, the floor, my bones. It wasn't music. It was language. Something chanting my name in tones that made the air taste like copper. We followed it outside. The moon was full again, too full, unnaturally bright, like it had been dragged closer to Earth. The stars had vanished. There was no wind, no insects, no sound but the hum. And then the trees parted. Not like before, not gently. They ripped themselves apart, branches splintering, roots cracking the soil, and from the darkness stepped 3 figures. Not human, not vampire, not anything I had ever seen. They wore robes made of stitched shadows, their faces hidden by masks that looked carved from bone and obsidian. But I knew them. From the dreams. From the memories. From the blood. Who are they? I asked, voice trembling. Celine stepped in front of me. They are watchers. Keepers of the oldest laws. The ones who came before my kind. Before names. They do not come unless something unnatural has been created. The center figure raised its hand and pointed at me. And in my mind, I heard a voice, not with ears, but within. You carry a forgotten name. You drink from 2 rivers. You were not meant to wake. Then why did I asked aloud. Because she called you, the voice said, and it was Celine's. Not the one beside me, but another. Older. Angrier. Starving. They mean me, Celine whispered. They think I summoned something I couldn't control. Did you? I asked. She shook her head. No. I didn't summon you. I loved you. There's a difference. But they didn't care. They began to chant in unison, and the ground beneath us trembled. My body reacted before I could stop it. My mouth opened, and a sound I'd never made before poured out of me. A scream, ancient and full of power, cracking the air and silencing the forest. The watchers recoiled. Just slightly, but it was enough. Run, Celine said. Now. No, I said. I need to know what I am. Not tonight, she said. Tonight we survive. She grabbed my hand and we ran, through the burning trees, through the whispering roots, through the air that tasted like endings. Behind us, the watchers didn't move. But I knew they would return, because I had awakened something they were meant to keep asleep. Because I was not just Celine's lover. I was her consequence. When we reached the house again, I collapsed in her arms. What am I? I asked, sobbing against her chest. Celine stroked my hair. You are mine, she whispered. And you are becoming something the world forgot to fear. But they'll remember now. That night, as I lay beside her, wide awake, the humming returned. Quieter, closer, from inside me. And when I touched my mark, it pulsed not with light, but with a heartbeat. Not mine, not Celine's. Something older. And it was hungry. Celine left before sunrise. I felt her absence like a rip in my skin, like something torn open that refused to close. I didn't know what was inside you. But you felt it, I said. Didn't you? I felt everything. But I loved you anyway. Then that's why I won't let them take you. I reached for the chains and felt the metal burn my skin. They were forged from memory, my own, twisted against me. The more I tried to break them, the more I remembered things I shouldn't. Celine's first love screaming as she burned. My mother's death. The face of a child I'd never known but somehow lost. Each link was a wound. Each lock a truth I hadn't faced. They're made from you, Celine said. You have to accept them before you can destroy them. I don't want to remember, I whispered. But you have to, she said, or they win. So I let go. I let it in. Every wound, every death, every desire I buried. The loneliness, the need, the hunger that had followed me my entire life, waiting to be named. And in that moment, the chains broke. Celine collapsed into my arms, her body shaking, her mouth at my ear. You're not just the end of the line, she said. You're the beginning of something new. The old kin hissed in unison, their forms flickering as the circle shattered around us. You have chosen the world's destruction, they said. No, I said, lifting Celine into my arms. I've chosen her. And the fire behind me erupted into light. Not flame, not death.
Creation.
It surged through the woods, igniting trees with golden fire, turning rot into bloom. The old kin screamed as their forms unraveled, their curses breaking apart like dust in sunlight. I didn't look back. I carried Celine through the burning woods, her heart beating weak, but steady against mine. The bond between us pulsed not like something borrowed, but like something earned. And when we stepped into the night, when the trees behind us burned to nothing but ash and memory, I knew the truth. This wasn't a story about saving her, or saving myself. This was a reckoning. And I wasn't afraid anymore. We didn't speak for hours after we escaped the forest. The sky was still wrong, colors slightly off, constellations out of place, the moon hanging too low like it had been watching everything and didn't know how to look away. Celine lay beside me in the tall grass of an empty field, her body healing too slowly for someone like her. I could feel it in the way she trembled when she reached for my hand, not from fear but from exhaustion. She had given too much, and now the bond between us was carrying her weight as well as mine. I didn't mind. I could hold her. I could hold everything. The fire inside me wasn't burning out. It was stabilizing, refining. Where there was once chaos, there was now clarity. The Watchers hadn't returned. The old kin had fallen. But their fall had sent out a pulse through the world. I felt it the same way a forest feels lightning strike hundreds of miles away, deep, inevitable, echoing through the roots. Something had shifted in the balance. Something ancient had been reset. They know, Celine whispered at last, her voice rough against my shoulder. The others. The old ones. They felt it. Who are they? I asked. Older than me. Older than the kin. They buried themselves when the stars last aligned like this. Waiting. Resting. Watching. You woke them.
Good.
She turned her face toward mine. You don't understand. They don't come to reason. They come to feed.
To take.
They believe the source is theirs to claim. Let them try, I said, brushing her hair back from her face. I'm not giving it up. Not to them. Not to anyone. I don't want you to become like them. What if I already am? I asked. What if I'm worse? Then I'll stay by your side, she said. Even if it ends me. You already ended me, I whispered. And I'd let you do it again. We rested until dusk. Then we walked, nowhere in particular. The world felt strange beneath our feet. More reactive. The wind carried whispers, the animals fled before we came near, and the shadows cast by our bodies didn't always move in sync with us. Reality was responding to our presence, like it remembered something it had tried to forget. People noticed too. In the nearest town, they stared as we passed, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. Some bowed their heads. Others fell to their knees. One woman simply began to weep, without knowing why. I didn't speak to them. I didn't have to. Celine watched them carefully, like she was waiting for me to change. For me to stop seeing them as people. You're becoming what I never could, she said one night, as we lay in a motel room that felt too fragile to hold us. You're not a queen, Iris. You're a storm in skin. And storms don't rule. They cleanse. Then stay with me, I said. Let's destroy everything that's wrong and build something better. You say that now, she whispered. But what happens when I become part of what's wrong? I kissed her like an answer. Long, slow.
Deep.
Her body melted against mine, and the bond between us surged, so strong it shook the lights in the room. She moaned my name like a prayer, and I held her down with hands that knew both worship and ruin. We made love like a ritual, blood, breath, teeth. I bit her neck and drank, not because I needed it, but because I wanted to feel her inside me. She bit back, groaning as my power poured into her, healing, burning, marking. When we collapsed, panting and trembling, I whispered, "You'll never be wrong to me." She didn't believe it. Not fully, but she let herself pretend. For one night. And then the world reminded us. The next morning, the sky cracked. Literally. A thin, jagged line ran across the heavens, like glass fracturing. People screamed. Birds dropped from the sky mid-flight. Time skipped. It was 7 a.m., then 3:12 p.m., then midnight. The clocks stopped trying to keep up. And the whispering returned. Everywhere now. Not just in my mind. In the trees. In the radio static. In strangers' mouths. She has awakened. She has taken. She must return what was stolen. Celine stood frozen, her mouth parted. It's not just the source, she said. It's you. They want you. Then they can come and take me. But Celine shook her head. You don't understand. They don't want to kill you. They want to merge with you. They want to become you. You're not a vessel anymore, Iris. You're the storm they've been waiting for. So we stop them, I said. We fight. I don't think we can. Not like this. Then we changed the rules. We returned to the forest. Not the one where Therese had fallen. The one where Celine had been born. It took hours to find it, buried beneath centuries of ash and moss and forgotten time. But the trees remembered her. And they opened for us. What waited inside was not a home. It was a graveyard of gods. The ruins of the first ones. The altar where Celine had first been created. The pool where the source had first bled. We were never meant to last, Celine whispered. We were a failed experiment. A trial. But your evolution. I knelt before the pool. Its surface reflected nothing. Not even the moon. I reached into it. My hand vanished into darkness. I felt cold. I felt heat. I felt choice. And the voice returned, louder than ever. Bind to us. Become us. Or burn us away. What happens if I do? I asked aloud. Celine was silent. But I knew. If I accepted them, I would become something no one could stop. Not even her. If I denied them, they would come with teeth. With claws. With war. I stood slowly. My hand still in the pool. And I smiled. She didn't say goodbye, didn't wake me, didn't whisper her usual promise in my ear before slipping out. She left only a note, written in a language I didn't know how to read with my eyes but understood perfectly with my blood. I must go to where I was born. If they want to destroy you, they'll have to come through me first. But she didn't say where was. And she didn't say when or if she'd be back. For the first time since our bond was sealed, I was alone. And the thing inside me liked it. It stretched. Breathed. Moved. I could feel it more clearly now, a second presence within me, not separate, not other, but deeply me. It didn't have a name. Or maybe it had too many. It whispered sometimes. Not in words, but in emotions. In urges. In heat. In hunger. It wanted. And I was getting tired of telling it no. The house felt hollow without her. I walked the halls like a ghost, touching the places she'd stood, the sheets still warm with her scent, the books she'd left scattered on the floor like breadcrumbs, leading to nowhere. I found one beneath the floorboard in the attic, wrapped in cloth so old it crumbled in my hands. It was sealed with blood. My blood. I hadn't put it there. But I dreamed of it. And when I opened it, I felt something shift in the walls around me. The book was a record. Not a story. Not a warning. A prophecy. And my name, Iris, was in it, written in a script that pulsed against the page like a heartbeat. I flipped through it, each page revealing more than the last. I saw women through the ages with eyes like mine. I saw Celine's face 100 times, never aging, always watching. I saw myself burning, rising, sitting on a throne of roots and bone, worshipped, feared, alone. The last page was blank, until I touched it, and then, like blood leaking from a wound, a sentence appeared. She is the beginning of the end. Or the end of the beginning. I dropped the book. My hands were shaking. My throat was dry. I didn't know who wrote it, or when. But I knew it was about me. And her. And whatever this was turning into. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked into the woods again, drawn by a pull I couldn't name. The watchers didn't return, but I felt eyes everywhere. Animals stilled when I passed. The wind whispered not just around me, but for me. When I reached the edge of the lake, I saw her. Not Celine. Not Therese. Someone else. A woman standing barefoot in the water, hair pale as starlight, her dress floating like mist. I knew her from the book. Not her name, but her purpose. She was one of the first mothers. The ones who drank from the source. The ones who birthed the bloodline. She looked at me with eyes that held centuries. "You're late," she said. I didn't respond. I couldn't. "You should have awakened years ago." But she kept you soft. Fed you slow. She loved you too much to let you become what you were meant to be. "Celine didn't hold me back," I whispered. "She gave me strength. She gave you comfort. There's a difference." "Why am I seeing you now?" I asked. "Because you're ready," she said. "And because the others will come soon. The ones who think they can control you, shape you, kill you if they must." "Let them try," I said. Her smile was sad. "You don't understand yet. This isn't about survival. It's about choice. Will you be queen or god?" The water around her darkened, turned to ink. Shadows rose behind her, hundreds of them, eyes glowing, mouths open in silent devotion. "You're not the first to carry the source," she said, "but you might be the last." "Why me?" "Because your blood remembers. Because your body survived. Because Celine chose you, and then loved you. That changed everything. Even the old laws." "I don't want a throne," I said. "I want her." "Then you better find her before they do," she said. "Because love won't save her. But you might." I blinked, and she was gone. The lake still. The sky too quiet. I ran back to the house. Inside, the mark on my wrist was glowing brighter than ever. I could feel Celine's fear, not through the bond, but through something older, something deeper. She was in danger. And I was done waiting. I packed nothing. I didn't need anything. I walked into the forest, let the roots guide me, let the night open like a mouth before me. And as I walked, I felt them watching. Not watchers. Not spirits. Not gods. The others. Those who had tasted the power and failed to contain it. Those who had been almost. And now they followed me, whispering in the dark, waiting to see what I would become. I wouldn't disappoint them. Not again. I would find her. And when I did, I would burn the world for her. Or rebuild it in our name. The trees led me north. They bent in directions no map could follow, forming paths I never would have seen with human eyes. My feet didn't tire. My breath stayed steady. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I didn't stop. Because every step I took, I felt her closer. Not just in the bond we shared, but in the ache that pulsed behind my ribs. Celine was alive, but not safe. And the thing inside me knew it before I did. Knew it the moment the sky darkened and the wind whispered her name like a death sentence. The ground changed as I crossed into the forgotten woods, older, wilder, untouched by time or memory. Here, the rules of the world bent like paper. Trees moved. Shadows lingered even when nothing cast them. Time looped in whispers, and the moon hung above me no matter the hour, bleeding just a little more with each mile I walked. That's when I saw the circle, carved into the earth, surrounded by stones inscribed with runes that hurt to look at. In the center, chained to the altar of bone and vine, was her, Celine. Her head hung low, hair a curtain of black over her face, blood dripping from her wrists where ancient metal bit into her skin. She looked small, still, silent, and I didn't know if she could hear me, but I said her name anyway, Celine. Her head lifted slowly. Her eyes met mine. And for a moment, everything in the world stopped. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "You shouldn't have come." "You knew I would," I said, stepping into the circle. The air pulsed against my skin like a warning, but I ignored it. "They're watching," she said. "They want you to come. Let them watch." And then they appeared, like smoke stepping out of smoke, like rot made beautiful. The old kin. I didn't need to ask who they were. My blood recognized them. The ones who never died, who fed on the first flame and were buried beneath the old earth when their hunger grew too great. Not vampires. Not gods. Something between. There were 5. Cloaked.
Tall.
Ageless. And they spoke in one voice. You carry the seed.
She is ours now, I said.
She chose me. The source is not a lover, they hissed. It is a curse passed through blood, and you are the last vessel. Then you made a mistake letting me live, I said, and the circle burst into flame. I didn't do it consciously. It happened the way thunder follows lightning, inevitable, instinctual. The fire didn't burn me. It fed on the shadows, forcing the old kin back as I stepped toward the altar. They didn't stop me. They couldn't. What do you want from me? I asked. To end the lineage. To seal the source. Your blood keeps it alive. Your death will bury it. You had centuries to destroy it, I said. Why now? Because she made it love, they whispered, all 5 voices trembling like broken strings. And love makes the curse stronger. I touched Celine's face. She flinched, not from pain, but from shame. I didn't know, she whispered. My hand remained submerged in the pool of unlight, skin tingling with a sensation that defied touch, like memory, like future, like the space between lightning and thunder. All around me, the forest pulsed. Not with life, with waiting. Celine stood a few feet away, her body tense, her eyes unreadable. She hadn't begged me not to do it. She hadn't tried to stop me. That was the most terrifying part because she knew, deep down, that this choice had always been mine. The voice came again, not in a single tone, but in 1,000 echoes from the ones who came before, who failed, who devoured themselves trying to contain what I now held with effortless ease. Bind to us. Become the many. Become the memory. Become the mouth. I felt them, writhing beneath the surface of the pool like serpents made of time and want. They didn't threaten. They offered. Power without limit. Knowledge that had shattered minds. Immortality so vast it would stretch beyond the death of the sun. And all they asked was that I let go. Of individuality. Of desire. Of Celine. I stared into the water and saw it all. A version of myself crowned in obsidian, worshipped by cities made of bone. Whole civilizations falling to their knees as I passed, blood raining from the sky like confetti. I saw empires rise beneath my feet. Planets burn in my name. I saw Celine as a shadow behind me, silent, small, eventually forgotten. A lover erased by eternity. I pull my hand back. The pool screamed. Not aloud, through me. The sky cracked deeper, a thunderous groan that echoed across dimensions. I stepped away. The ground shook. Trees withered. And the voice returned, no longer offering, demanding. You are nothing without us. You are our vessel. You are the end we created. No, I whispered. I'm the end you feared. Then die. The forest exploded. Black tendrils erupted from the earth, lashing toward me like 1,000 hungry arms. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I raised my hand and the fire inside me roared to life. White, gold, furious. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. I burned them before they touched me. One by one. The ground ignited in sigils I hadn't drawn but instinctively knew. Runes older than any tongue. Runes of refusal. Of sovereignty. Celine stepped forward, blood on her lips from biting her own wrist, eyes glowing like twin eclipses.
They want a god, she said.
Give them something worse. I reached for her hand, and together we spoke the word that rose in my chest like a heartbeat. Not in English. Not in any living language. It was a word that meant no. It meant mine. It meant enough. The forest tore apart. The pool shattered into nothing. And they screamed. The many. The kin. The old. The forgotten. They came pouring out in spectral forms, wailing, desperate, monstrous. They had not expected denial. They had never been told no. And now it was all I gave them. The power didn't consume me. It obeyed. Because I wasn't fighting to rule. I wasn't fighting to escape. I was fighting for her.
For the hands that steadied me.
For the voice that called me back from the edge again and again. For the bond that had never been a chain but a lifeline. I turned my face to Celine as the world around us split open. Are you ready?
For what? She asked.
To become legend, I said. We rose. Not physically. Metaphysically. Our forms dissolved into something greater, light and darkness braided together. We didn't destroy the world. We rewrote it. The sky bled fire. Time collapsed. But only for a breath. When it stilled again, when the dust settled, we stood in a clearing that hadn't existed before. Quiet. Sacred.
Ours.
The others were gone. Vanished. Not destroyed, they could not be. But they were locked now, buried beneath every denied prayer, every forgotten name. Their whispers fell silent. And the stars aligned. Literally. Above us, the sky sparkled with constellations that hadn't been visible in millennia, symbols of renewal, of balance, of choice. I sank to my knees, exhausted, shaking. Celine caught me before I hit the ground. She cradled me in her arms like she had the first time she fed, like she had the night we made the bond permanent, like she always would.
It's over, she said.
No, I whispered. It's just beginning. She kissed me then, not as a vampire, not as a god, but as a woman who had loved me through lifetimes. And I kissed her back, knowing now that the world could never take her from me. Because I was the world, and she was the reason I had chosen to save it. The world did not return to what it was. It couldn't. After what we'd done, after what I'd become, time moved differently around us, slower in some places, faster in others, always circling back to the same truth. I wasn't just a woman anymore. I wasn't just a myth. I was the one they whispered about even when they didn't know my name. The ground remembered my steps. The wind carried my breath. Storms formed when I wept.
And people came.
From cities, villages, ruins. From cults that rose overnight and temples that hadn't been touched in centuries. They came barefoot, heads bowed, eyes wide and mouths full of prayers they didn't understand. They brought offerings, blood, stories, bones, children. They brought worship. But I didn't want it. I didn't want their reverence. I wanted peace. I wanted her. But the more I tried to hold on to something human, the more the world insisted I let go. You're not one of them anymore, Celine whispered to me one night as we sat by the edge of the cliff overlooking what used to be the sea. You know that, right? I don't want to be above them, I said. Then why do they kneel? She asked. Why does the sky shift when you scream? Why do the stars call you by name? I didn't have an answer. But I knew this. The more I denied what I was, the more dangerous I became. Because power doesn't like to be ignored. It festers. It demands. And mine had begun to bleed into the land, into the air, into the dreams of anyone who stepped too close. Celine was the only one who could touch me without consequence. The only one who could kiss me without lightning tearing through the sky. But even she had begun to feel it. The hum beneath my skin that never stopped, the heat in my blood that scorched without warning. You're unraveling, she said gently. Not into something worse. Just more. I turned to her. Are you afraid of me? Yes, she said. But I'm more afraid of losing you. You won't, I whispered. Even if the whole world forgets my name, I'll still remember yours. She kissed me like she believed it, like she wanted to. But later that night, I woke up alone. The bed cold. The bond dim. Panic wasn't something I felt easily anymore, but it crept into me then, sharp and bitter. I found her in the ruins of the old church, kneeling before a cracked altar. You're praying? I asked. To what? She didn't turn. To who you were. Before all this.
She's gone, I said.
You killed her the night you drank from me. I know, Celine whispered. And I'd do it again. She rose and faced me, and her eyes were wet. I loved Iris. I loved this Iris too. but I don't know how to hold someone who burns the sky when she sighs. I stepped closer. Then don't hold me like a goddess. Hold me like I'm still yours. She reached for me, hands trembling, and I let her. I melted into her arms, not because I was weak, but because I needed to. Because for one moment, I wanted to remember what it felt like to be small. To be human. To be hers. And she held me.
Tight. Fierce.
Like she was trying to protect me from myself. I can't keep being the reason you stay grounded, she whispered. It'll kill me. Then don't anchor me, I said. Come with me. Rise with me. She blinked. What? They want me to rule, I said. But I won't do it alone. I want a world where they worship us. Not just what I've become. I don't want to be a queen, Celine said. Then be my chaos, I told her. Be the darkness beside my light. Be the one they don't see coming. She stared at me, breathless. You'd share that with me? I'd burn eternity to make you mine, I said. Again and again. That night, we didn't make love, we became it. Our bodies moved like prayers, like spells, like something forbidden that the world couldn't name. We carved new constellations with our moans. The earth trembled beneath our pleasure. And when I bid her again, not for blood, but for claim, she offered her neck without hesitation. Yours, she whispered, forever. And I knew then, I didn't have to choose between power and love. I was the choice. I was the storm, and she was the dark that followed. Not lesser, not quieter, just different. Perfect. Wholly in her own way. The world had changed, and so had we. Not in the way legends say gods rise and mortals fall, but in something more intimate, more terrifying. The sky no longer broke. The stars no longer whispered. But their silence was louder now, as if the universe itself were watching, waiting to see what we would do with the power we'd refused, then remade. Celine and I walked through cities that bowed to us, through ruins rebuilt in our name. Some called us saviors, others demons. But they all believed. And that belief fed something old and vast in the soil. Crops bloomed where we stepped. Storms died at our fingertips. Children were born with silver in their veins and dreams full of fire. The world had begun to write new myths. But we didn't care. Because it was never about worship. Never about thrones or names carved into stone. It was about us. Her mouth on mine when everything else felt like collapse. Her laugh in the quiet moments, soft and real. The way her fingers found mine even in sleep. She was my anchor, my mirror, my sharp edge, and my softness. But nothing stays untouched forever. The cost of creation is always due. And ours came not in the form of gods or monsters, but something worse, the echo. A shadow of me, formed from what I refused. From every yes I never gave. Every drop of power I turned away from. It came to life in the center of the world we had saved, wearing my face. But empty. Cold. Perfect. It smiled without warmth. Moved without grace. It called itself Iris, and claimed that I was the copy. You think love made you stronger, it said. But it made you less. No, I told it, standing between it and Celine. It made me dangerous. You chose desire over dominion, flesh over fire. I chose her, and she will die for it. The battle was not like before. There were no flames, no collapsing forests, no gods screaming in the wind. Just will, mine against its own. A clash of soul against soul, bond against void. Celine tried to step in, but I stopped her. This is mine to finish, I said. But I'll be with you, she said, in every breath. And I felt her, wrapped around my spine, her presence like armor, her love not behind me, not in front of me, but within. The echo struck first. It tried to show me visions of a throne I'd refused, of a kingdom made of worshippers, of eternity alone but worshipped. I didn't flinch. You're just what I could have been, I whispered. But I don't regret choosing her. You will. I touched its chest. My hand burned. I kept pressing. You're empty, I said. And that's why you'll never win. The echo screamed. The sound shook mountains. But I didn't break.
I shone.
Light poured from my skin, not golden, not divine, but real. Human and infinite. The bond between Celine and me glowed through my veins. Love as power, lust as purpose, blood as blessing. And I tore it apart not with hate, with truth. I whispered in its ear, I am not yours. I am hers. And the echo unraveled, slowly, like silk coming undone. It vanished into nothing, and the wind stilled. The world exhaled. And for the first time, everything was quiet. I turned to Celine.
She didn't speak. She only held me, tight, fierce.
Like a woman who had just watched the universe try to steal the one thing she loved and lived to see it fail. We didn't rebuild a kingdom. We didn't take a throne. We walked away. Into the woods. Into the dark. Into the kind of peace no one believes people like us can ever earn. They still tell her story, I know, of the girl who drank blood like a promise, of the goddess who chose love over immortality. They say we disappeared. They say we ascended. But here's the truth. We never left. We live in the fire that won't die. In the dream you wake from aching. In the shadow that feels like a kiss. I was never meant to be saved. She was never meant to love. But somehow, impossibly, we found each other. And that, not the power, not the legends, not the blood, that was the miracle. Not heaven, not hell, just her.